Hi, I am here. It's Tuesday. It's election day here where I live for the school board and more places around the country. I hope that you're going to go vote if that's the case. Thanks to everybody who joined us at the Hangout last night. We had about 60 people there and did a little over 2 hours. Always awesome. And that's why I'm a little bit late this morning. But we had a great time, and I'm very happy to have you here joining me because I've got Sam Youngman. Sam is brilliant and hilarious, and I always love when he joins me. He writes the funniest newsletter and one of the best each day. It's called Today's Big Stuff. You should go subscribe. My conversation with Sam begins at 23 minutes into today's show. But I've got some headlines for you here at the top, and then we'll get to my conversation with Sam, starting with the news that broke during the Hangout last night that the interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, who represented Trump in many of his cases and then just became a talking head on TV, who then, once he got reelected, was somehow appointed to a job she has zero experience in as the interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, where she's not from. Well, last night, actually, Kevin Richburg broke this news during our Hangout. It was announced that she will be charging Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, Democrat of New Jersey, with assaulting, resisting, and impeding law enforcement officers. Of course, that's not what happened. You can watch the video and see that that's not the case. On May 19th, she was one of 3 Democratic representatives from New Jersey who, along with Newark's Democratic Mayor Ross Baraka, went to the Delaney Hall Immigration and Customs Enforcement Facility in Newark for an oversight visit. That's her job. Such visits are permitted by law as part of Congress's oversight ability. Well, the mayor was not covered by the law permitting congressional oversight. He waited outside the facility's gates in the public area, and masked agents tried to arrest him there. Video released by the Department of Homeland Security showed the congresswoman rushing after the agents and shouting to protesters outside to surround the mayor. The video also shows a crowd of people jostling, and McIver's elbows maybe making contact with a masked officer in the crush of the crowd, but no one breaks stride. McIver says she was the one assaulted by ICE officers. In a statement about charging the congresswoman, Alina Habba said, "It's my constitutional obligation to ensure that our federal law enforcement is protected when executing their duties." What about a congressional representative being protected? Charging a congressional representative after an event in which no one was injured is a dramatic move. According to Heather Cox Richardson, the Washington Reporters said that as of 10 p.m., no charging documents were posted in federal court, and a spokesman for McIver's legal team said neither she nor her lawyers had seen any charging documents, which is curious. In a statement, Congresswoman said she and her colleagues were, quote, fulfilling our lawful oversight responsibilities as members of Congress, have done many times before, and our visit should have been peaceful and short. Instead, ICE agents created an unnecessary and unsafe confrontation where they chose to arrest Mayor Baraka. The charges against me are purely political. They mischaracterize and distort my actions and are meant to criminalize and deter legislative oversight. I look forward to the truth being laid out clearly and in court. Congressional Democrats came to her defense immediately. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York, Whip Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar of California, Vice Chair Ted Lieu of California, and Assistant Leader Joe Neguse of Colorado issued a statement saying, "The criminal charge against Congresswoman McIver is extreme, morally bankrupt, and lacks any basis in law or fact." Alina Habba's statement is a blatant attempt by the Trump administration to intimidate Congress and interfere with our ability to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. House Democrats will not be intimidated by the Trump administration, not today, not ever. And they pushed back, warning, everyone responsible for this illegitimate abuse of power is going to be held accountable for their actions. Meanwhile, on the same day, they have decided apparently the Department of Justice is considering settling a wrongful death lawsuit with the family of Ashley Babbitt. So the woman who invaded the Capitol and was a clear and present threat to actual serving Congress people as part of a melee and an insurrection, her family is getting apparently $5 million. We'll see if that happens, while the black congresswoman is allegedly, we'll see, being charged for assaulting an officer who, you could argue, assaulted her. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was a scrum. It was a bunch of people. You can watch the video, and this is not going to go well for them. I don't think that they thought this through. This is going to backfire, is my prediction and what I talked about last night. More on that soon, I'm sure. And in other news, there was other news yesterday, of course. Apparently, our tiny mad king talked to the Russian president, authoritarian Vladimir Putin, his bestie, for over 2 hours and accomplished absolutely nothing other than basically surrendering and arguably making Putin's case for him. Tom Nichols posts, the call between Putin and Trump was a painful reminder that Trump is the junior partner in the Russian-American relationship and that Putin will continue his mass murder campaign in Ukraine as long as he can get away with it. Adam Parkhamenko posts, Trump called Putin to surrender today. Joe Biden never did that shit. Anna Applebaum posts, Putin and Trump had a phone call that produced nothing. Gary Kasparov, Putin will tell Trump whatever he wants to hear, and then Trump will say whatever Putin tells him to say. We've been through this over and over. It never changes. Of course, it's worth reminding everybody that our tiny mad king at one point said, I will end the war on day one. Obviously, the statement is meaningless. Vladimir Putin had zero interest in negotiating. And Alex Vindman says it's way past embarrassing watching Trump get played by Putin. So I guess let's plan for this war to continue unabated, I suppose. I'm not sure what else to think. The New York Times reporting Britain and the European Union has struck a post-Brexit reset deal, which includes a new defense partnership and a reduction of trade barriers on food and fishing. Fascinating. Stock markets fluctuated yesterday. The American dollar slipped and bond yields jumped after a rating downgrade highlighted worries about the cost of our Mad King's policies. In Kentucky, a tornado killed 19 people in the state, mostly in a small city of London, Kentucky. The president of CBS News was forced out amid a showdown involving her division, Paramount executives, and Trump. Her name is Wendy McMahon. She's being lauded as doing the right thing and standing strong as the president of CBS News, but they are losing face day after day. In the Middle East, Israel allowed some aid into Gaza yesterday, and had yet to begin a long-awaited major advance into the territory. Apparently, there's a huge divide between the far right and the military itself there. Interesting to explore more. And Sesame Street has had a funding crisis that caused them to lay off 20% of their staff, but they've signed a new distribution deal with Netflix and apparently allows them to remain on PBS. So very excited to hear that news, and hopefully that's good for children's educational programming. Officials are investigating what led a Mexican Navy sailing vessel to crash into the Brooklyn Bridge, killing 2 crew members. And it's horrible, but my guess is that they didn't know how tall their masts were. You would think that would come with the direction manual, or how high the Brooklyn Bridge or low it was. This is a horrific scene, and it's just unfathomable to imagine how that could have happened. Yesterday, the Food and Drug Administration under RFK Jr. apparently approved the Novavax COVID-19 vaccine, but only for older adults and for others over the age of 12 who have at least one medical condition that puts them at high risk of COVID. Still, they did approve a vaccine. The consequences of the Trump regime cutting USAID are ongoing. Food rations that could supply 3.5 million people for a month are moldering in warehouses around the world because the USAID cuts and risks have become unusable, the food. According to 5 people familiar with the situation, the food stocks have stuck inside 4 U.S. government warehouses since the new regime's decision in January to cut global aid programs. If true, this is just it is true. It's horrible. It's just horrible. The Trump administration yesterday fired nearly 600 employees at Voice of America, a federally funded news network that provides independent reporting to countries with limited press freedoms. The layoffs targeted contractors, most of them journalists, but also administrative employees, and amounted to over a third of Voice of America's staff. A horrible judge has struck again. That's right. MAGA Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk issued a sweeping ruling that destroys workplace discrimination protections for LGBTQ people in the United States. This guy has the worst reputation of any judge in the country, and he declared that while Title VII of the Civil Rights Act does not protect LGBTQ people from workplace harassment based on their sexual or gender orientation. So making it easier to bully, marginalize, minimalize LGBT people at work. And a discouraging ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday. They issued a brief order yesterday afternoon that allows the Trump administration to remove deportation protections from nearly 350,000 Venezuelan immigrants pending appeal of the case. Ketanji Brown Jackson noted that she would have denied the government's request. A lawyer representing the immigrants described the court's decision as truly shocking and the largest single action stripping any group of non-citizens of immigration status in the modern U.S. history. So lots to think about in today's news updates, but take a deep breath. Try to get centered on where you are right now and what you can do to make a difference for your family, your community, your country, your planet. That's what we try to do here at Stand Up. That's what I try to do each and every day. And not feeling great about my efforts lately, especially here in our local school board election. We only had one candidate up for re-election, but he's my friend, John Malpe. I hope he wins today. I'll be very relieved. He's one of the best guys I've ever met in my life, one of the smartest guys. We're so lucky to have him, and this community, arguably, that I live in doesn't deserve my friend John Malpe. But I really hope he wins, and I have negative feelings around myself as that I didn't make enough phone calls, do anything really to make a difference. And if that's the way that you feel, I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. All right, well, let me see if I can get to a couple clips before I get to my conversation with Sam Youngman. Let's start with the mayor of St. Louis. Her name is Kara Spencer. She seems pretty cool, and she is reacting to these horrible storms in Missouri. She's on MSNBC, and this is what she had to say.
Not just true for St. Louis. Cities across the nation, when experiencing disasters such as this is what the federal government is for. We need your help. We need the help of the broader community. We have set up a fund to help bring in some funding right off the bat, just to bridge that gap. But we need federal assistance. There is
FEMA
no way.
there? Is FEMA on the ground yet?
FEMA has not been on the ground. We do not have confirmed assistance from FEMA at this point.
Well, I kind of wanted to flag that clip because that could be the canary in the coal mine in terms of natural disasters, depending on how bad they are and depending on what the precedent is for how quickly FEMA usually gets in touch with leaders like the mayor of St. Louis or the governor of any state after a horrible storm like that. But are we going to see more of that? Is FEMA going to show up in St. Louis? Is FEMA going to show up anywhere, including where there are white Trump voters? I don't know. We will find out, but I'll be following that kind of situation closely, and I'm sure plenty of journalists will be doing good work covering it. All right, let's get to Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House. He was asked by a reporter yesterday at their press conference about Ashley Babbitt and the settlement that I mentioned. Trump is going to give $5 million to Ashley Babbitt.
I was wondering if I could get your reaction to this reported $5 million settlement between the Trump administration and the family of Ashley Babbitt.
The Chief of Police of the United States, Capitol Police Force, clearly and plainly said, and I support the position, that the settlement was a slap in the face to the hardworking, courageous, and brave men and women of the United States Police Force. It was totally done without any communication to the chief of the Capitol Police or his lawyers, and appears solely the result of a political determination that Donald Trump and Republicans are going to try to whitewash what happened on January 6th. This settlement is just an extension of what they've previously done, which is to pardon violent felons who violently attacked the Capitol on January 6th, including police officers, and now have all been pardoned and sent back to communities across the country where in some cases they're re-engaging in criminal activity. Donald Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans are not going to be able to erase what happened on January 6th, no matter how hard they try.
All right. Let's go to another question for Hakeem Jeffries. This one about the big bad billionaires bill, and here it is.
No, Donald Trump promised to veto any bill that actually would take away Medicaid benefits from the American people. If that, in fact, is the case, is he planning on saying to House Republicans tomorrow morning that he's going to veto the bill as it's currently written? Or was he once again lying to the American people?
All right, and now let's go to Congressman James McGovern of Massachusetts, 2nd District. Love James McGovern, and here he is talking to his fellow congressman in committee hearings yesterday.
What I do want to talk about is the fact that this morning, after midnight actually, Republicans told us that we would be considering their budget reconciliation bill at 1 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. If Trump's big, beautiful bill is so great, why not debate it when people are still awake? Wouldn't you want everyone to know how great it is? Why are you debating it at 1 o'clock in the morning? I think that's prime time in Guam. Any person with half a brain cell can immediately figure out why you want to notice a meeting for 1 a.m. It's because you don't want people to know what's in your bill. Remember what Trump said? Close your eyes and vote for it. That's exactly what you're all doing because you all know exactly what the bill does, how unpopular it is, and what regular Americans think of it. It's going to give a huge, massive, historic tax cut to billionaires, paid for by stealing from the American people, ripping away Medicaid from parents and grandparents, ripping away food assistance from kids. This is not hyperbole, my friends. We're not fear-mongering. No matter how many times you use the word, that doesn't make it true. Your big, beautiful scam is a historic giveaway to those at the very, very top, financed and paid for by the rest of America. So again, I ask, if this bill is so great, why debate it at 1 o'clock in the morning? And we all know the answer.
Indeed we do. They are terrified of the American public, including their own supporters, finding out what that bill would do and what it would mean for their lives. All right, let me go to Keith Boykin. I love Keith Boykin. He does a great series on Instagram called In These Streets, where he includes a little music and some clips and stuff. And last night, Keith Boykin made a video about the arrest of the black congresswoman who the Trump administration is making famous, LaMonica McIver.
The Trump administration is charging Representative LaMonica McIver, a black member of Congress, for an assault that never happened when she visited an ICE facility in Newark, New Jersey. This is an outrage. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, the same crooked lawyer who represented Donald Trump when he was convicted for 34 felonies, had the nerve to claim that assaults on federal law enforcement will not be tolerated. Well, when did that start? Because Trump is the one who pardoned the people who assaulted law enforcement officers when they stormed the Capitol in a violent coup during the January 6th insurrection. So in Trump's racist America, 1,000 angry white men attacking the Capitol is a peaceful demonstration.
We love you. You're very special. I know how you feel.
But one black congresswoman legally walking into an ICE facility to do her job is a crime. These latest charges are Just last weekend, they arrested Newark Mayor Ross Baraka and claimed he stormed the same ICE facility. But now they've just dropped the charges against the mayor because they didn't have a case in the first place. And they don't have one now. This is what happens when the majority of white voters put an unrepentant, twice-impeached, convicted criminal in the White House. We are witnessing the worst abuse of power and weaponization of the government since the McCarthy era of the 1950s.
Have you no sense of decency, sir, at long last? Have you left no sense of decency?
And it's not over. The Justice Department is also reportedly considering charging Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman, an 80-year-old black woman who was also legally inspecting the ICE facility. The clear purpose here is to put black people in what they think is our place and create a chilling atmosphere to prevent us from speaking out against their crimes. If you thought they were only going to attack Hispanic people and undocumented immigrants, now you know. They're coming for black people too, and we better be prepared.
All right, Keith Boykin telling it how it is. Love that and wanted to bring that one to you. And now let's go to the jokes. Last night, Jon Stewart was in the anchor chair over at The Daily Show because it's Monday, and he tore into CNN for excessively promoting their guy, Jake Tapper's new book on former President Joe Biden's health, accusing the network of trying to sell viewers a book about news they should have told you was news a year ago for free, which is exactly what my opinion has been all along. Here he is.
I'm on the pins and needles. I'm very anxious right now. I'm very nervous, very anticipatory. And it's not about whether Russia in Ukraine will be settled. It's not whether somebody can stop Netanyahu. Somebody, please. It's not whether Taylor's unfriended Blake. I don't know. No, like most people in America, I am most looking forward to reading a book. But when?
We're back with breaking news in our politics lead and a brand new excerpt from my upcoming book with Axios' Alex Thompson. It's called Original Sin. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's on Biden's decline. It's called Original Sin. I'm sure you've heard on May 20th. That's Tuesday. Original Sin. That's coming out in 3 weeks. On May 20th. That's just 19 days away. In 1 week and 1 day. It's coming out in just a few days. Comes out Tuesday. You will not believe what we found out.
Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret? You won't believe what we found out. No, that's why I'm watching. Breaking news in a week.
All right, just a little bit of what was a longer rant and bang on Jake Tapper and his new book. All right, now let's get to Colbert and the CBS Late Show last night.
Hope you all had a good weekend. The president spent it settling back in at the White House after his Mideast all-you-can-bribe buffet. And, oh, man, did you see? He just loved it over there. He was having such a good time with the princes and the palaces and the marble and the gold and the special souvenir he really wants to bring home, obedience to leaders on punishment of death. Because evidently, because he spent this beautiful weekend viciously attacking any who dare defy him, including Walmart, which recently and quite reasonably called his tariffs too high and announced that they will raise prices as a result. Which means it's going to cost you a lot more when you run out for milk, one Goodyear tire, and a T-shirt that says, Shrek yourself before you wreck yourself. All right? Don't do it. Be careful. Trump didn't like Walmart accurately describing how he has personally affected your pocketbook, so the president posted, Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. They should, as is said, eat the tariffs. Yes, no, folks. As is said, I make a mess, you eat it. That's how the world works. Which reminds me, JD, there's some hot dogs stuck in my golf cleats. Get over here with your tongue and a positive attitude.
All right, there he goes. Colbert and Stewart and the clips and the headlines. That's what I've got for you on today's show. The news segment. But now it's time for the headliner, the reason you came, the big interview. It's Sam Youngman, who I absolutely love. I adore this guy. I think he's hilarious. I think he's really smart. I think he's got a lot of credibility and integrity. I like his moral compass. He co-writes one of probably my favorite daily newsletter, for sure. It's called Today's Good Stuff, and you can find it at thealtmedia.com. Thealtmedia.com. Of course, Sam is a veteran reporter, journalist, and journalism professor now, and lives out in Southern California. He's always great on the show. We went live yesterday on YouTube. You can watch it there, youtube.com/standupwithpete. Let's do it right now with the always amazing Sam Youngman. Mr. Youngman, welcome back. So great to see you.
Pete, it's great to be with you, buddy. I appreciate that we didn't promo this. We're just doing it Bill O'Reilly style. We said, F it, we'll do it live, and here we are.
You pay such close attention to the news. You produce the newsletter, so you have thoughts and ideas. You're very well plugged in, and we always love getting your take on all these important stories. None is more important than former President Biden's health. We learned that he has prostate cancer. It's advanced. He's probably had it for a while. And the reactions to it have been, all the way across the spectrum, from thoughts and prayers from Marjorie Taylor Greene, and somebody even wrote a post for Trump because clearly he didn't wish him well, to Obama and Kamala, and then other people questioning the timing of the release of this. Sam, what do you want to say about all of this? The book, the announcement, it's a big deal. It's a big story.
Well, because I don't want to be like Jake Tapper or Mark Wayne Mullen, let me start where a decent person would start and say, hey, I really hate to hear this about Joe Biden. I hope he's okay, because cancer sucks. I lost my mom to cancer. I think most people have lost somebody to cancer. Or they know somebody who somebody in their families they've lost to cancer. The idea that even this is in bounds for some of these people to politicize, oh man, it shows you just how far we've fallen.
Don Jr. said something about the timing of it all as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a great time to get cancer. I don't think people get cancer for a PR move. The idea that we're suggesting Joe Biden developed prostate cancer in order to turn the page from whatever Politico or Axios or CNN were reporting last week, that sounds a bit craven. I'm not even sure Trump's, whatever fake shit went down in Butler, I don't even know that he'd be up for this.
Yeah, exactly. He was asked about that assassination. Did you see that clip? He was asked, was it Maria Barr, whoever interviewed him?
I thought it was Brett Baer, but yeah.
It was Brett Baer. Asked him about how come we don't know more about that shooter, and he had a mealy-mouthed answer. He didn't say anything, but it is an important question, and people on the right want to know about that. They want to know about the Epstein files. That was a weird moment when he asked him about that shooter.
I know. I just want to grab Joe Rogan and shake him and be like, dude, you see conspiracy theories everywhere, but Butler seems on the up and up to you? Really? You don't have any questions there?
A lot of questions remain about that. Let me just go back to President Biden for a second. I love the idea that he's known that he had cancer for a while and was getting really beat up by this Jake Tapper book, and just was like, you know what? Well, guess what? I have cancer and I don't have long to live, and go fuck yourselves. And I'm Joe Biden.
Yeah. You feel good now, Jake? Yeah. Yeah, no. Look, if there is that fuck you involved, then I have to respect it. But I think the reality is Joe Biden is a man who has been stalked by tragedy his whole life. Despite that, he's given 50 years to this country. And instead of even having a modicum of respect for that service, what we've seen, I think, are gutless, cowardly Beltway reporters who are way too afraid to take on the guy who was up till 2 a.m, all caps attacking Beyonce and Bruce Springsteen. And instead, they're going after the 82-year-old guy with cancer because, hey, he won't send an angry mob after him, right?
It's pretty weird that Trump, by the way, said, I didn't realize this till last night, he really did say, you just never know what's real. You never know. People would believe I would believe anything. He said Taylor Swift is no longer hot. He said that, right?
Yeah, I guess he thinks she's just missing like 3 pounds of orange makeup to get there.
He's an almost 80-year-old man talking about, he's the president of the United States talking about whether or not a woman, any woman, is attractive. I don't want to be used to that at all. I want to just make a big deal out of that. She's no longer hot.
Growth. I mean, during the first term, he referred to his porn star mistress as horseface. So, I mean, maybe this is growth on the Trumpian scale.
There are a lot more important issues I want to talk with you about. I feel like, we should spend a good amount of time thinking about, and networks, and everybody should spend a lot of resources reporting on the big, beautiful bill, which I think should be called, and Democrats are calling it the big, bad billionaires bill, I think is better name, because I was reading the history, and you covered this and I covered it as well, when Obama and Democrats tried to get Obamacare done, and it took weeks in committees and markups and so on, and they are literally passing this without markups, without knowing what's in the bill hardly at all, and overnight, in the middle of the night. I feel like this should be probably one of the biggest stories. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was looking today, Jennifer Bendry at the Huffington Post was noticing that the committee hearing for Wednesday is at 1 a.m. Really, several days out, they're scheduling this hearing for 1 a.m. I mean, I think, I always roll my eyes when somebody says, oh, well, what Trump's doing is a distraction. But I do think there's something to the idea that he was tweeting about Beyonce on the same night that House Republicans were pushing through a bill that would take away health care from 14 million people, Americans, that would screw over poor people just to give Elon, Leon, Melvin Musk another tax cut that he clearly needs.
It's crazy, but just to be clear, we're talking on Monday, and Mike Johnson's aim apparently is to get this passed by Thursday. So again, I feel like everybody should be ringing the bells on this. Of course, it would then have to go to the Senate, and then, Trump badly wants to sign this bill, but man, we would not know the consequences. We don't know what it's going to do to, everything, that the way we live and things that we depend on. And so I just think that everybody should be paying attention to this as probably the most important issue of the week. I'm saying it right now, Sam.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. I will say there is, I think, a political silver lining here in that the Senate is not going to embrace this bill that the House nut jobs have passed. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of so-called moderate House Republicans. And we're talking about people that were fine with January 6th, so I don't know how moderate they are. But I do think you're seeing them walking the plank with these just vicious attacks on Medicaid, and they'll have to answer for that next November.
One of the big stories today, of course, is that Trump took a phone call or got on the phone with Vladimir Putin, his handler. And I don't know if there's any reporting if anybody else is on that call. I guess when the calls, it could be any number of people could be listening in. But apparently Trump calls up Putin and just caves, surrenders. He does it with the Chinese on trade. He's doing it with Putin on the war here, it seems. What's the reporting? What have you read about that phone call today?
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing you are, which is Trump surrendered to Putin again. It looks like he got off the phone and said, hey, they're going to do a ceasefire or maybe not. And, he sort of seemed to give up every condition he had beforehand. You had J.D. Vance, who was on Air Force Two, and when he wasn't being a complete dick about Joe Biden having cancer, he was saying, hey, maybe we'll just walk away because this is Putin's war and Joe Biden's war. Well, gosh, who benefits if the United States walks away? It sure is hard to figure that one out, right? Look, I think Trump has always planned on surrendering to Putin. The real hiccup in his plan was when Zelensky wasn't on board with that. Surrender is not in Zelensky's vocabulary, and it's at the top of Trump's when it comes to China and Russia.
What do you make of the current, you've always got plenty to say, Sam, about the White House press corps, the developments with the press corps in terms of who's in, who's out, and their access and what they get to ask. Let me just say that in their defense, anybody who has access to the president or spokespeople in the White House, on Air Force One, anywhere else, has to be careful what they ask, or it will be the last question that they ask. If you and your network want to stay in the room, there's a certain protocol that you have to follow, and I don't think that means you need to be a supplicant like some of these new right-wing alt media folks that are in there. But what do you think about the quagmire that they are all in with asking tough questions like ABC did last week? What's her name? I forget that reporter's name. She's always good.
Yeah. Rachel Scott, who I agree is a great reporter.
Yeah.
Look, they've put themselves in this position. Years of training wheels coverage for Trump, being hard on everybody else. They basically invited this upon themselves. What's the value of staying in that room if there are restrictions on what you're allowed to ask or say? I don't know that I see the value in that. One thing, you asked me my general thoughts on the White House press corps. Let me say this. Over the weekend in my native Kentucky, more than a dozen people were killed by tornadoes. The National Weather Service there has been gutted like it's been gutted other places. So what was the White House press corps asking about today? Hillary Clinton's body count. How many people Hillary Clinton has killed? That was a real fucking question at the White House press briefing today. So I guess the people of Kentucky, who are still waiting to see if they're going to get any FEMA relief from a president who clearly doesn't give a shit, but the press corps doesn't seem to either. If they're not there to ask questions on behalf of the people like my fellow Kentuckians, then what the hell are they there for? Themselves?
Yeah, heart goes out. Those storms were terrible. I saw videos, the death count, I think there was like 40 in several different states. And I heard one major city's mayor, I forget who it was, said that they hadn't heard anything yet from FEMA. The federal government hadn't reached out yet. I don't even know if FEMA is still a thing, if it is a thing. Yesterday, by the way, it's hard to know where any department or agency is. It's impossible to keep track of, but I read this horrifying headline yesterday that the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division just lost like a huge amount an agency changing amount of their lawyers resigned because I guess, the lawyers at the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice don't want to make America great again and don't agree with the idea that it's white people who are the major victims, not black and brown folks and gay folks and so on. It's crazy what's happening at DOJ. Tell me your thoughts on Pam Bondi's leadership.
Well, you mean Pam Bondi, who was on the Qatari payroll until she got this job?
Hey.
Yeah, it's appalling, man. If you've devoted your life to civil rights litigation, and then a new person comes in and says, hey, we don't give a rat's ass about voting rights anymore. Instead, we're going to use this office to push the 2020 big lie. How could you possibly stay there and be a part of that? I think somewhat selfishly, I don't know about you, but I've been watching Andor, and so I'm all about this, the inner workings of a rebellion these days. And, you do hope that some people would sort of strategically stay behind to gum up the works from the inside. But I don't know that I could, in good conscience, ask anybody to do that these days, knowing what they're being asked to do, knowing what they're being asked to overlook. It's appalling. I mean, you're basically watching the U.S. government being retrofitted to pull a complete 180 and go after the very ideals it used to, be there to protect.
Wait till somebody.
Fred Hampton notwithstanding.
Well, there's more than Fred Hampton, but yeah, that's a great call. It's a great call, of course. I am watching Andor. I'm on episode 3. I just started it. It is very, very good, and it is clearly representative of what we're dealing with right now in the U.S. and around the world. I got to ask you what you thought of Trump's trip to the Arab world. His first overseas trip was to not our best friends. This case, or the last time he was president, either he made all kinds of deals. Apparently he's siding more with the Arab world than Israel's leadership now. It's kind of crazy. I got whiplash from that whole trip. What are your thoughts on what got done or did not get done, or how much he enriched himself?
Well, they asked Willie Sutton, why do you rob banks? He said, that's because that's where the money is. And same thing with Trump. There's a reason he went to the place where, Jared Kushner got a $2 billion golden goose right after leaving the White House the first time. Look, the $400 million bribe from Qatar doesn't even get into the Trump properties that he's developing there. We have never seen, nor have we even imagined corruption on a scale like this. What we're seeing, it's wild. Everybody used to say, oh, Trump has so many Watergates. He has 6 Watergates before lunch and a couple teapot domes before his afternoon nap. We've never seen anything like this. And I think you're still seeing every day that the political world, the media world, they don't know how to wrap their brains around it. It's almost like they can't comprehend it.
I'm worried about the Supreme Court because I'm an American and I'm alive. And there's been some major cases that have been argued recently. There's been some decisions handed down. Where are we, Sam Youngman, on rule of law as we speak here at towards the end of May 2025?
We're the country that we just found out gave $5 million to Ashley Babbitt's mom. So I don't know that we're, super rule of law-y these days. In fact, it seems like we've sort of turned our back on it pretty badly.
That's crazy.
The court is sort of fascinating to watch these days. You do have, I think, John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are, even those soulless creeps are sort of realizing, oh gosh, we've created a monster that's devouring everything. I don't expect John Roberts to start exhibiting anything that even resembles courage anytime soon. But it has been sort of fascinating to watch them push back on the Alien Enemies Act, things like that. But it's terrifying to say, but this broken, corrupt court is our last line of defense between a lawless lunatic and his quest for vengeance.
Oh, well said. Did you see that? I couldn't believe this was real either. Apparently, the Department of Agriculture has a giant banner of Trump's face in between its historic Greek pillars or whatever they are. There's a giant banner, and it looks like something from obviously the Third Reich or a Marvel movie of Hydra or the bad guys anywhere in history or in fiction. It's a giant picture of angry-looking Trump hanging from the United States Department of Agriculture. I just couldn't believe it was real, but apparently that's something that is happening.
Yeah, they were smart to hang it high enough to where the people of Washington can't piss on it. But I do think I am betting on the people of Washington to somehow figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, that's like the plantation that was burning. I was pretty concerned about that.
Yeah, we enjoyed putting that in our newsletter this morning. I had a friend visiting this weekend. He came over for a cookout Saturday night. He said, black people have been talking about this all day. We've been sharing it on social media. We've been sharing this on text chains. And I thought, good. I wasn't the only one celebrating. There's a lot of people cheering those flames as they burned higher and higher. And yeah, I guess there's a lesson in there to remember is, it may take a couple centuries, but we got long memories. We can burn it all down.
Let me ask you just about Democrats right now and your thoughts on the performances that they are giving in all ways at town halls, at committee hearings. I feel like a lot of really great and impactful performances at hearings and on television. I like Senator Chris Murphy a lot. Of course, I like AOC and Jasmine Crockett as a lyricist and very, very effective. And absolutely fearless, all of these people. But I'm not quite sure what to make of this tweet or post on Blue Sky that you wrote that you said, I recently went to a Bernie rally. I regret the mistake and it won't happen again. And this is referring to a Mediaite story that says Bernie Sanders joins Andrew Schultz in nuclear takedown of Democratic Party, agrees it's a threat to democracy. I didn't see the interview, but what is your take here, this criticism on him, and what about the rest?
I think like a lot of people, I'm disappointed. I'm always disappointed to see Bernie equating the Democratic Party to a Republican Party that is destroying democracy. They are not the same. And to compare the two because you lost an election in 2016, to me is just petty. And it's very poorly timed. I'm seeing a lot of Democrats who think that the best way to curry favor with Chuck Todd and Jake Tapper is to throw Joe Biden under the bus. They think that this is going to win them voters in the future. I guess what I'm looking for is strength. That fearlessness that you just mentioned with Jasmine Crockett. Show me somebody who's not afraid of Jake Tapper. Show me somebody who's not afraid to stand up for democratic values. Show me somebody who's not ashamed to be a Democrat. That I'll get on board with. But going to these Beltway media shows and just trashing our party over and over again because that's how you get the cool kids to like us, I'm not down with that. I've been to way too many county Democratic meetings. I've seen way too many people on the ground working their asses off for their ideals to just see them trashed over and over again by people who never leave Beltway green rooms.
Oh, wow.
On my high horse today.
I like your horse. I like your horse now, however high it is. It's a great horse, and we always love.
It's a California horse. It's high as hell.
Oh man, I love talking to you about all of this and everything else. One more question, which is on what we're seeing with the issue around immigration and the deportations. We heard a lot from Homeland Security head Kristi Noem, who she loves to dress up. And she really seems to love this job. But, man, I thought there was a lot of Democrats who did a really good job taking her to task and holding her feet to the fire when she was sitting there at those hearings last week. But what are your thoughts about what we're seeing in this country regarding, deportations? Also, of course, the most outrageous thing was that we're sending black and brown people out, refugees. I'm talking about the Afghan and Cameroonians that were here under protection status, temporary protection status, and we're bringing in super racist white South Africans, apparently, according to their social media timelines. What are your thoughts about all of that?
Gosh, it sure is hard to figure out what's going on here, right? I mean, it can't possibly be what we're seeing with our own two eyes. It's, I keep going back to 2016 when New York Times reporters were saying, we just can't really know what's in Trump's heart. We don't know if the birther guy is a racist or not. We don't know if the guy who wanted the Central Park Five put to death is a racist or not. They were so vexed by this, this question of whether, Trump and his Klan rally attending father could possibly be racist. And yeah, he's a racist. He's kicking out 2-year-old brown kids in the middle of cancer treatments and importing white South Africans, anti-Semites. I mean, I don't know. This does not require, you don't have to be a genius to see what this is. He's a racist. He always has been. He fired an enormously, enormously qualified black man at the Pentagon and replaced him with, an alleged drunk, an alleged rapist in Pete Hegseth who can't, stop inviting half the damn phone book to his Signal chats. The idea that Donald Trump has ever been anything other than a racist is, well, just too dumb to contemplate.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Very well said. I knew it back in 2004. I mean, if you were in New York, you knew it. And if you were a black or brown American, you knew it because you watched The Apprentice and you saw the way he talked and treated black people. And it was like, what are you doing? Whether they were the token, celebrity contestant or, the regular apprentice, it was like people knew. You could always tell. It's not hard to tell. So I'm glad that you went back and defined it in that time frame. Very important. All right. Anything else? Anything else that we're missing that we didn't talk about?
Tomorrow's a Tuesday, so if there are elections near you, make sure you get out and vote and don't vote for the assholes.
That's right. We got a big school board election that I've been working on and making calls for. I'm helping out my friend, and great point. Thank you so much, Sam. We love you and appreciate you. Thanks for joining us live.
Pete, you're the best. Thanks, man.
Yeah, love Sam Youngman, love talking to him, and loved that conversation. Go subscribe to his work at thealtmedia.com, and you can read and get delivered to your inbox today's big stuff every day. Love that and love Sam and love you. Thanks for everybody who joined at last night's Hangout. There's a link if you want to watch it in today's subscriber email. If you're not a subscriber, hey, sign up now. Now is the day. It's your day to go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic and sign up. No more freeloading. Come on. You've been listening for a long time. Send a couple bucks your friend Pete's way for all of my expensive tastes in life. Thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
I think you're driving wheels and leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand.